Friends, say you shouldn't take advantage of someone's silence and simplicity. Everyone's patience has a limit, and when it breaks, it can cause a lot of trouble. Our story today is about a man who suffered through a lot of abuse for many years. Everyone took advantage of him, but he didn't lose hope. He believed that hope was good, even the best. Eventually, he did something that surprised everyone. They wondered what happened. The movie is called The Shawshank Redemption, released in 1994. It's one of my favorites. At the beginning, we see a court trial. Andy is accused of murdering his wife and her boyfriend. He is the vice president of a big bank, but all the evidence is against him, so he is sentenced to life in prison. The prison's name is Shawshank. It's a very secure place and the guards are strict. Many prisoners have spent their entire lives there. For a banker, this prison is like hell. When Andy was brought there, everyone thought he wouldn't last long. It seemed hard for someone for a civilized society to live with so many dangerous prisoners. Many prisoners tried to force Andy to give up, but he didn't break easily. Andy kept to himself, acting like he was in a park, not in a prison. He didn't say much to anyone, like he was observing everything. One day, he met a prisoner named Red. Red had been in prison for 30 years and secretly sold things to other prisoners at high prices. Andy got him a 6 to 7 inch stone hammer. Red was suspicious. He wondered if Andy wanted to hurt someone or escape. So he asked Andy why he needed the hammer. Andy said he liked stone carving and not to worry. Red got nervous but took the hammer. When he saw it, he smiled because it would take 600 years for Andy to build a tunnel with that hammer. We saw that when Andy got the hammer, he was very happy. The next day, during their conversation, Red warned Andy that 3 people in jail were looking for a chance to hurt him. Soon, Red's word proved to be true. When the 3 prisoners took the opportunity to attack Andy, they beat Andy badly and also physically abused him. This sequence continued like this for the next 2 years, but Andy never complained about this to anyone. There was always a strange silence on Andy's face, and his entire body was covered in bruises. One day, when Andy was doing repair work on the roof with Red and some fellow prisoners, a guard named Hadley told his colleague that his brother had sent him $30,000, but it was of no use because a lot of money would go to the government in taxes. Then Andy went to Hadley and asked, "Do you trust your wife?" Hearing this, Hadley got angry and was about to fall down from the roof. But Andy quickly said, "Under American tax law, if a person wants, they can give $60,000 to their spouse in their entire life, and this amount is tax-free. I can do this work for you for free, sir. Just give 3 beers to my friends." The next day, we saw all of Andy's friends drinking beer on the rooftop, and Andy was sitting far away in the shade, watching them. What he did for his fellow prisoners today was too much for them. He made them feel the freedom of drinking beer in the open sky. Today, even that strict guard seemed soft-hearted to those prisoners. That same night, we saw a movie being shown to all the prisoners in the jail. Suddenly, Andy came to Red and asked him to bring a big poster of the movie's heroine for him. Saying this, Andy walked out of the room. But as soon as he came out, he was caught by the same 3 people who abused him again and again. But not anymore. This time Andy attacked them instead. This made the 3 prisoners very angry, and they beat Andy so badly that he had to be admitted to the hospital for 1 month. The one who beat Andy was also put in the dungeon for 1 week. When he returned to his cell a week later, he encountered Hadley. Hadley beat him so badly that he was permanently disabled. A month later, after Andy returned from the hospital, the jail warden Norton came to Andy's cell and searched the cell. But the most surprising thing is that during the search, the warden did not find the hammer that Andy had ordered from Red. Actually, the warden had come here to meet Andy because he had saved a lot of tax from Hadley. This is the reason that brought the warden here. A few days later, Andy becomes the assistant librarian. The library has a long-time employee, Brooks, who has managed the library for the past 50 years. Brooks is nearing the end of his life, and Andy has been appointed as his assistant. Andy was surprised by the sudden need for an assistant librarian, but his surprise quickly faded when he was also assigned the responsibility of managing the warden's income tax. In his first year, Andy filed tax returns for half the inmates, and in the following year, he filed returns for every guard in the jail. This workload was significant. To help with this, Andy was given an assistant who turned out to be Red. One day, Brooks attacked a prisoner under Andy's supervision, attempting to kill him. Although the government had pardoned Brooks, he didn't want to leave the prison. It had become his entire world. He resorted to this extreme measure to stay in the prison, hoping it might reduce his sentence. With Andy's persuasion, Brooks eventually relented and left the man alone. Brooks found it difficult to adjust to life outside of prison. The world had changed significantly in the last 50 years, and the pace of life was much faster. He had seen only one car in his lifetime before going to prison, but now there were more cars than people. Brooks struggled to keep up with the fast-paced world and felt lost and out of place. He missed his prison days and friends, and one day, feeling overwhelmed, he wrote a letter to his friends saying he was going to kill himself, and his team were deeply upset by Brooks' letter. Sometime later, the warden started a program called Inside Out, which involved inmates working to earn money. This program helped reduce the burden on the jail's budget and also provided inmates with valuable skills. Norton, the warden, received many contracts due to the cheap labor provided by the inmates. He made a lot of money from these contracts without exposing the government, and he, with his experience as a banker, was tasked with handling the black money. He created a fictional person as Norton's partner and obtained documents like a driver's license, tax certificate, and a bank account in that person's name. All the black money earned by Norton was transferred to this account, ensuring that he would never be caught. Norton was very pleased with Andy's work and became more lenient towards him. He granted permission for inmates to continue their studies while in prison, and Andy assisted them in their efforts. Meanwhile, a new prisoner named Tommy arrives at the prison. He is very young, full of energy and enthusiasm. Tommy is impressed by Andy, but he doesn't know how to write at all. Andy agrees to help him, but only if Tommy studies hard and dedicates himself to his education. One day, during a conversation, Tommy asks Red about Andy. He wonders why someone so smart and kind would be in prison. He used to be a banker. Tommy is quiet after hearing this. When Red asks, Tommy tells him about a time 4 years ago when he was in a different prison for theft. There he met another prisoner who confessed to committing many thefts, including the murder of a man and his girlfriend. The strange thing is, the police arrested the woman's husband instead, and he was sentenced to life in prison. That man was also a banker, so it sounds like Andy is innocent. Hearing this, Andy sees a chance to prove his innocence. He immediately goes to Norton. Instead of helping Andy, Norton tells him to focus on his work. Norton knows that if Andy leaves, his entire operation will be disrupted. Andy assures Norton that he will continue to work for him and keep quiet. Norton doesn't listen. and sends Andy to the dungeon for a month. He also sets up Tommy to be shot, claiming that Tommy tried to escape. Norton tells Andy that Tommy was shot while trying to escape. Andy knows Norton is lying. Norton demands that Andy work harder after he is released from the dungeon, threatening to destroy his library. Andy refuses, and Norton extends his punishment by a month. When Andy finally comes out of the dungeon after 2 months, Red visits him. Andy asks Red if he ever thinks he will get out of prison. Red says yes, but by then he will be old and his mind won't be as sharp. Andy talks about his dreams of opening a small hotel on a beach in Mexico after he is released. He imagines buying old boats and going fishing. They say Mexico is so beautiful that people can easily lose themselves there. Red is concerned about hearing Andy's plans. He knows that people often go crazy after being in the dungeon for a long time and lose hope. He wonders if Andy is trying to kill himself, just like Brooks did. Andy says, "But I will need someone like you there, Red." He stands up and starts to leave. Red looks at Andy with surprise and relief. Andy turns back and says, "You are right. I only have 2 choices here. Live in misery or die. But promise me something. If you ever get out, there is a big football field in Buxton. There is a big tree in that field. Near the tree is a stone wall. On the wall, you will find a black stone. There is something buried under that stone. Promise me you will go there when you leave." Red asks, "What's under the stone, Andy?" Andy says, "You will have to find out for yourself." With that, Andy heads straight to Norton's office. After finishing his daily work, he stores all the files and diaries in a special locker. After this, the warden tells Andy to take my clothes to the laundry and polish the shoes until they shine like mirrors. We see Andy, after properly polishing Norton's shoes, go to his cell. Red is very upset tonight. He suspects that Andy might sacrifice his life today. The next morning, when the prisoners are counted, all the prisoners come out and stand outside their respective cells. Red also waits impatiently for Andy to come out, but today Andy didn't show up. A guard warns Andy to come out or something bad could happen to him. He still didn't come out. When the guard angrily approaches his cell, the ground gives way beneath his feet because Andy is not in his cell today. On the other hand, when Norton changes his shoes in his office, he is also surprised to see Andy's shoes instead of his own. He immediately goes to Andy's cell. When he finds out that Andy is not in his cell, he is also surprised. He thinks that Andy's colleagues must know something about Andy, but he was wrong. Nobody knew anything, not even Red. He doesn't find anything in Andy's cell except a few stones. When a piece of stone is picked up and thrown against the wall, it makes a hole in the poster on the wall. Upon removing the poster, Red, Norton and the other guards present there are surprised to see a big tunnel behind it from where Andy had escaped. After escaping from this tunnel, Andy crawled through a smelly tunnel and traveled about half a mile that night. Today, Andy did something that no one could have even imagined. While searching for Andy, the guards reached the vehicle from where he had left. They found nothing that except Andy's dirty clothes and a small stone carving hammer that was completely worn out. From this, Red realized that it wouldn't take 600 years to build the tunnel with this hammer. It would only take 20 years. For the past 20 years, every night after everyone went to bed, Andy had been building a tunnel in the jail. He also kept the dirt that came out of the wall in his pocket and scattered it on the ground outside the cell. Actually, after Tommy's death, Andy decided that his jail time was over. That night, after completing his work, he replaced the file and diary with another file and diary. And then he did as Norton told him. He polished his shoes like a mirror and then put them on and set off on his journey. No one paid attention to him. He himself wore the warden's clothes, and on top of that, he wore his own clothes. He came out of the tunnel after everyone went to sleep at night. That night, nature also supported him. Whenever there was lightning and thunder, he would hit the pipe of the tunnel with a stone. And then Andy crawled through that smelly tunnel for half a mile. The next morning, Norton was surprised to find that Andy had made a tunnel in the drain with a 6 to 7 inch hammer. Then Andy went to many banks in a suit and boots. And this was the same man who was Norton's imaginary partner. He closed his accounts at every place and took the deposits. When he left, he had $370,000. He also sent all of Norton's files to the press, and the next day the dark news of Norton spread like wildfire. As soon as Norton found out about this, he tried to remove the evidence against himself before the police arrived, and as soon as he opened the file, he was surprised because the Bible was kept in place of his file, which he always advised Andy to read. In it was written, "You were right, salvation lies in this." Turning the next page, he saw that the page of the book had been cut in the shape of a hammer in such a way that the hammer could be easily hidden in it. At the same time, the police arrived and first arrested Hadley, but Norton caused some trouble. He locked the door of his office and then committed suicide. Scene changes. A few days after Norton's death, Red found a letter in jail that was completely blank except for an address. It was right on the border from where Andy might have fled to Mexico. Red laughed thinking about Andy, and his friend often talked about him in jail. Red missed him a lot. Red's punishment was forgiven after a few days, and the government gave him an apartment and a job in the same department store where Brooks was hired. But like Brooks, survival was becoming difficult for Red too, because he had also spent 40 years of his life in jail. He also wanted to kill himself like Brooks, but he remembered his promise to Andy. And then one day he took leave from work and went to the same place where there was a big tree. There was also a wall of stones, and a black stone was also fixed on that wall. And when Red picked up that stone, he found a box underneath it. Red found some money and a letter in it. This letter was from Andy. In it was written, "Do you remember the name of that place which I told you about in Red?" Red thought about the name of that place. Further it was written, "I am waiting for you, and yes, the boats are ready. Remember, hope is not good, but the best things." After this, Red went to his apartment, packed his things and left for Mexico. He was so happy to meet Andy. He couldn't even sit. He just wanted to rush to him and hug him. When Red reached Andy, after completing his long journey, he saw him repairing a boat. Both of them embraced each other happily. And with this movie ends. So friends, how did you like this story? Please tell me in comments. Well, I personally liked this movie very much. If you like my explanation, then please like and share the video. See you soon with another interesting story. Till then, bye bye, take care.